Companies are paying data scientists like me 6 figures to do work that AI can now complete in 30 seconds. Here's the dirty secret no one in my profession wants you to know. The statistical analysis, correlation studies, and the data visualizations that used to require advanced degrees and expensive software can now be done through a simple conversation with artificial intelligence. Most business owners still think they need to hire specialists or learn complex programming to make data-driven decisions. But today, I'm going to show you how AI just made professional-grade data analytics accessible to anyone who can ask a question, and why that changes everything about how you should be running your business. Today's task is going to be straightforward. We're trying to figure out if high cash flow properties sacrifice their long-term appreciation potential for being so high cash flow. Learning this matters because it transforms you from someone who guesses at investment decisions to someone who makes mathematically informed choices that could save you from leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. First, we're going to ask AI to create a scatter plot that's going to show the relationship between cash-on-cash returns and our appreciation index that we've developed in previous episodes of this channel. Then we're going to have it identify which properties are outliers that beat out the trend, the rare deals that offer both strong cash flow and high appreciation potential. Our reward at the end is going to be a curated list of the best investment opportunities from our data set, identified more accurately than any human analyst could manually calculate, and completed in about 5% of the time that it would take even the most experienced data scientist to do it by hand. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist. I'm building the AI Capitalist R&D channel to give you the AI tools you need to conquer the world of profit. In the 2 previous episodes, we've been trying to build up an information data bank of real estate properties in order to be able to evaluate them and choose somewhere to invest our hard-earned money. We want to get the best chance of success. So, step 1, on the first episode, we looked at prospectuses, that's data sheets that real estate companies put out for properties that they're producing. And we learned how to use AI to extract data and then tabulate it and create the inputs to this spreadsheet. During that episode, I went through this calculation and how you evaluate a real estate property, especially a single family home. In the end, the metric that I looked at most was the cash on cash. And this is basically for every dollar you put in, how many cents do you get out per year? So I put in $1 into an investment. Every year, I'm going to get out 6 or 7 cents out of that investment. $100,000, I'll get 6 or 7 grand a year. So this is just the basic first step of what to look at in looking at a single family home and deciding where to put your money. Next, we used AI, a research agent, to actually develop a metric. We want to predict which of these areas is going to appreciate. First step is cash flow. O is cash flow. You want to make sure that you have the money coming in. You're not constantly putting money into it. So you have money coming in your direction in order to build up a reserve, which you can then use to do repairs like roof repairs and replace water heaters and whatever else has to happen to keep the property running. If your cash on cash is in the negative, that means every month you're putting money into it. No, don't do that. At least not by my strategy. There are others who actually use that strategy, but they're typically betting on appreciation. We developed this appreciation index. We did a lot of research. We had the AI do a very in-depth research project, figuring out what the unemployment in an area is, what do the schools look like, what's migration look like, how's the infrastructure, all the things that you look at to see if an area might take off. Once we know that we're cash flowing and once we know that the investment can perform, we want to bet on the best number at the roulette table, basically. We're hoping to gain some appreciation. And all else being equal, why not invest in a property that has greater appreciation? What I'm interested in finding out today, I want to get into a bit of statistical analysis. And this is really what separates the women from the girls. We want to figure out, is there a strong correlation between your cash on cash and your appreciation index? In other words, are you giving something up? If you go for these high cash flowing properties, are you then going to lose out on appreciation based on this index that we came up with? If we do, then we want to know what that is. How much cash are we giving up front to take a gain later on. And if not, we want to grab the winners. So first, I'm just going to hide all these columns. Just visually looking at this data, I'm trying to see, is there a correlation? I'm seeing a 5% that has a 7.3, 5% cash on cash. This is a scale of 1 to 10, by the way, on the appreciation index. But I'm seeing some of the low cash flows that are in a similar neighborhood. So just visually, it doesn't look like it's necessarily highly correlated. But let's do this statistically speaking. Let's actually do an analysis. So let's copy this data. Let's try this in a few different ones. We always try a few different ones. Now, in this case, I'm going to violate my own policy. I almost always have AI write the prompt for the research agent. In this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you a data set that includes property addresses and a cash-on-cash return for that property, and that also gives you an index of appreciation. So this is a predictive index that's going to tell us, is this property expected to appreciate or to stagnate? It's on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. I want to find out if these properties are correlated. By selecting a higher cash flowing property, does that necessarily mean that I am getting a lower appreciation in the long run? I want you to graph this out as a scatter plot with clearly labeled axes and with a trend line. And I want you to make a determination on that key question. Now Claude is running through, it's going to extract the data, and it's going to write a Python code. And then it's going to execute the code using matplotlib, which is your standard Python library for plotting statistical data. Okay, and there is a trade-off. This is what you would expect to see if there were a correlation. It would be a sloped line, but there are outliers that we can look at to try to maximize our... Okay. What does this mean? This means that as our cash-on-cash return is increasing, our appreciation index that we came up with is decreasing. Now, here's what I want to do to grab the best value I can. If you examine the data, you're going to see that there are actually two different groupings of real estate. One grouping is in the St. Louis region, and one grouping is in the south around Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee region. For each of these two, I want you to select the 3 properties which are outliers on the high end of the scale. So they should be as far above this red line of the trend line that you've produced here as possible. In other words, they should have the best appreciation index when compared to cash-on-cash return. They should also have a cash-on-cash return of above 4. For those properties that you select, I want you to use a different color point, and then I want you to label the addresses of those properties. So it should be a similar output graph, but it should have selected properties marked. And go. So it's transcribed read to you, my dear audience. So here's what it output. It selected the best performing properties for each of these regions. This is what we want. This is the good starting point. This is where you start, and then you start to look through. You look at it in a little bit more detail. So you start to see things like, does it have an attached garage? The finer points. Maybe take a drive out there, go take a look. What's the exterior? Is there a reason that these appear to be better value that isn't being accounted for here? But that's the final stage before you start filling out loan documents and make your down payment. So this is a very preliminary statistical analysis, but it's really interesting that you can walk through it with the AI and you can get it done fast. This took seconds. Look, I'm a data scientist, and I have to tell you something that's honestly a little bit uncomfortable for me to admit. The work that I trained years to do, the statistical analysis, the correlation studies, and the data visualizations, AI can handle most of it now in about 30 seconds. Here's what's strange about this moment that we're in. I've been testing this, and it turns out you can just ask. You can have conversations with AI, and you can get the kind of analysis that used to require expensive consultants and specialized software. So what value would someone like you or me bring to this situation? After all, if you can just have AI do it, why do it at all? Well, you have to understand the fundamentals. of what you're actually looking at. So you would have to have that experience in real estate investing and in statistics to be able to suss out which of these were the greatest value. What AI is doing is getting rid of the grunt work, the programming, debugging, all the time that I would have to spend sitting in Python with my code open, tweaking code and trying to just get it to make these graphs. Now I just say it and it just does it, which means that I can have more time to do more analyses, bring in more data, come to a better and more confident conclusion. That's the value that a data scientist brings today. And if you feel you're getting value from this episode, I would appreciate it if you push the like button. It helps me spread this channel, and it really helps the channel grow. So what we learned today, the key takeaways: AI can perform very complicated statistical correlation analysis in seconds. It can transform raw data into actionable insights with scatter plots and trend lines and mathematical precision that would take human analysts hours or days to complete. 2, it can perform visual data analysis through AI, which can reveal patterns invisible to the human eye. 3, multivariable optimization is now conversational. We can just ask AI to filter for a specific criteria, like above 4%, cash on cash, and above the trend line, and then we can get instant results with labeled data points. Lastly, AI doesn't just crunch numbers, it makes strategic recommendations by understanding contact groupings and then highlighting the best opportunities within each category. The pattern recognition and statistical analysis and the outlier identification that you just saw aren't just limited to numbers on a spreadsheet, they're applicable anywhere that you need to understand relationships between variables and find exceptional opportunities within very complicated sets of data. If you want to implement these AI analytical capabilities in your specific business or industry, visit aicapitalist.biz. I'm Evan Goldstein, and I help professionals like you discover even more customized and powerful applications of AI for your unique challenges. Whether you're in manufacturing or professional services or healthcare or finance or any other sector, these tools can be adapted to give you the competitive edge that you're looking for.